All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. As you can see, today is Halloween, and this is how I look. So, this is a little special edition to the lecture video. So, yeah. So, let's go ahead and get started with this lesson. Now, we've already talked about amendments 1 through 10, which is the Bill of Rights. For this lesson, we're going to look at the amendments that truly have an impact on your life. These are things that are going to happen basically every day. These are things that you know does have an impact on your life. So amendments that say like the president can only be elected to 2 terms, we're not going to talk about that because again, that does not affect your daily life. But the ones we are going to talk about do affect your daily life. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. So like we're going to examine, actually we're going to analyze how different our country would be if the 19th Amendment never happened. We're going to look at that. We're going to examine the significance of the 13th Amendment. And yeah, let's go ahead and move on. So here is your warm up picture. Okay. The question I'm asking you is what do you think this artist is trying to say about women, specifically their progression? Okay. Because if you look at it, depending on your point of view and your like angle to how the picture is, I've heard some students say they think she's in a hole, that the girl's in a hole and she's trying to get out. Some people say it's like a mountain and, a series of mountains and it's like a progression up. However, you see this, okay, go with that, okay. Now, if you look at the steps on the ladder, each word is something different. It keeps going higher and higher, okay. It might be hard to read it if you have um, a phone, and you're watching this on YouTube. If you have a laptop, it might be a little bit easier. But on your warm up picture, you can see some of the words. Maybe not the top ones, but you can still make out some of the words. So uh, go ahead, write your response. Okay. So pause the video because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right. So Amendment number 13 says neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crimes whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Section 2 says Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. What does this mean? Basically, slavery is done. There's no slavery in our country, not even the territories that we have. Now, why do I talk about this? Mainly because I had a student, actually several students, some years ago, tell me, you know, when the state, or the prison people make the criminals, people who are in jail, when they make them clean up on the highways and the parks and stuff like that, that's basically slavery because they're not getting paid. Okay, well, here's the thing. Look at that second part of it. Except as a punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted. So these guys, they had a trial, they were found guilty, and this is a way to kind of pay back to society. Instead of just sitting in a cell, hey, we're going to put you to clean the highways, clean up the parks, things like that. It helps out the community, and that's what part of jail is, to help, basically make the society better. And one way they can do that is by cleaning up. Okay. Now, does every jail make people do that? No, absolutely not. But here's the thing, there are a lot of prisons that have jobs for the inmates. Granted, they don't get paid much, but still, they're getting paid. So, okay. So that's why I wanted to go over this because, again, I want that lingering in some of your guys' minds. Like, I heard about this and that should be slavery. No, okay. It's not. All right. So amendment number 14, you don't have to look at the yellow section. You're going to look at this other side, the red and white. Okay. So section 1 of the 14th Amendment says, if you are born in the United States on American soil or it's one of its territories, You are an American citizen, right? Your rights cannot be denied by any state. So if one state tries to say, well, you're born in Texas and we don't like Texans, so what? Whoop you do. I'm an American citizen. I'm born in the United States. You have to respect my rights. Okay. Now, like I mentioned in class, sometimes, like my dad, he was born in Raymondville, Texas. My grandma crossed the border, gave birth to him at the hospital in Raymondville in American territory. Then, after several days, they went back to Mexico. My dad was raised in Mexico. Okay. Now, when the whole family moved to the United States, my dad was an American citizen. Even though my older tios and tias were not American citizens because they were born in Mexico, my dad and my couple of my tios and tias, they were citizens because my grandma crossed the border, so they have their birth certificate. Okay, people done that. Okay, now section 2, 3, and 4 deal with something that happened pretty recently. Okay, and I wanted to explain this. So there's a thing, if you guys have been paying attention to the news, on January 6th, 2021, these people tried to take over the Capitol building and try to overthrow the government, saying that Trump won the presidency and things like that. So people, they basically called it an insurrection. Okay. So Section 2 says this: the number of House of Representatives is based on population. But if an entire state rebels against the United States, then those states' representatives are no longer counted. So if the whole state, like the whole state of, let's say, California, said we're not going to be part of the United States, we don't respect your, Constitution, thing like that, we don't recognize it. Basically, the representatives from our state will not be counted because we're basically saying we're separating from you guys. Okay. Now, that's a state. Now let's look at the individuals. If you are or have been part of the rebellion or insurrection against the United States, you cannot hold any part of the executive, legislative branch. You can't even hold office for the government, whether it's civilian or military. No. Also, if you have a job where you have to give a oath of loyalty to the Constitution, you can't have that job. So a lot of these guys who were basically trying to overthrow the government, a lot of them were cops, and a lot of them got fired. And some people were like, "Oh, how could they get fired? They can't fire them. They were voicing their First Amendment right." And blah, 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 blah. It's like, yeah, they're voicing it, but when they stormed the Capitol building and started making their way through, trying to find senators and things like that, then they are part of an insurrection, and they're basically going against their oath. And their oath is to protect, defend your individual rights and to defend the Constitution. And if they're trying to overthrow the government, that basically means we don't recognize the Constitution. So, how can somebody protect it and also want to get rid of it at the same time? You can't. So, that's why a lot of those guys lost their jobs. Those guys were cops. Okay. This last part says any money asked for to get rid of a rebellion will be given and not question how it's spent. So that's like pretty interesting. So if there is a rebellion and let's say the executive branch says, hey, we need some money to get rid of these guys, and let's say we hire some assassins, some assassins from another country to come into our country and to get rid of them. Congress can't be like, hey, where'd you spend that money from? They don't have to. They don't have to explain it at all. Here's the other thing: if the rebellion, let's say we take over territory, we take over bank accounts, and we take over areas where they have money and stuff like that. If we decide to negotiate truce, we do not have to give them back their land or their money. That's ours now. That's the United States property. So there you go. All right. 15th Amendment says the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Basically, it doesn't matter what race, creed, whatever you are. If you are of legal age, you're not in prison, and I put a little asterisk by that, you've registered to vote, you cannot be denied your right to vote. You can't. Okay. Now, why did I put an asterisk thing next to the prison part? Because every state is different when it comes to voting. Okay. Some states like Maine and Vermont, you can vote if you're in jail. So let's say you register to vote and you committed a crime the very next day. You go to trial. You are found guilty. You go to jail. Next thing you know, oh, now it's election time. They will bring you your ballot into your jail cell so you can vote. Okay. Now, some states say no, no, no. If you're in jail, you cannot vote. Now, if you're out of jail, let's say on parole or you served your sentence, fine. Okay. Then there are some states that say no, 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 no. It depends on the crime you committed. You know, basically like a felony and above, like manslaughter and all that stuff. No, but something like a misdemeanor and and below, sure, you can vote. Some say no, you have to serve your entire sentence, no parole, things like that. And some say no, even if you've been in jail one time in our state, you cannot vote. So it just depends. You just got to know what the state law says in the state that you live in. Okay. All right. Now, 16. Those of you guys who have jobs, you already know this. But for those of you guys who don't have jobs, you have this to look forward to. Amendment number 16 says the Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived without apportionment amongst the several states and without regard of any census or enumeration. Meaning, Congress can collect taxes from your work income. Some of you guys, when you get your first check, you're gonna like, oh my god, I'm gonna get $1,800. You do the math, how much you get paid an hour, times it by the hours. You're like, yeah, I'm gonna get like $1,800. Yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get this, and you get your check, and you might get like 1,300, 1,200. You'd be like, wait, wait, wait. Where's the rest of my check? I was supposed to get $1,800. Where's the rest? That's Uncle Sam. They took that money. You don't pay taxes. They jack it from you. Okay. And everybody typically has that same first response like, they took so much. Who's FICA? Who's Medi-Cal? What's that? That's where your tax money is going to. You know, Social Security, Medi-Cal, all that good stuff. Okay. Now, here's the other thing, too. Anytime you get money, you're going to get taxed. You put your money in the stock market and it makes you a ton of money. You cash out, you're going to get taxed. You win the lottery, basically just cut that in half because, yeah, that's all for the taxes, federal, state, county, and all that good stuff. Um, you're going to get taxed. Okay. Uh, if your grandmama dies and she leaves you $100,000, you're going to get taxed on that. Basically, anytime you get money, you're going to get taxed. Okay. Now, I had some students in the past say, well, I'll just work under the table. I'll get money under the table. Well, here's the thing. Let's say you decide, I'm going to buy a car, right? All you have is money, just straight up cash, right? And let's say you buy a brand new car, $45,000 car. How do you get your money? The government's going to look at that. How do you get your money? How are you able to afford a brand new car? You make legally, you make no money. How are you able to pay for this? Where'd you get that money? And they're going to see that, and that's a red flag, and they're going to come after you. They're going to audit you, and yeah. So, guys, it's not a smart idea to do that kind of stuff. Okay. because eventually you're going to need to get something like a car, things like that. And if legally you make no money, and also you're buying a car, you're buying this and that, you bought a house, red flags like crazy, and the government's going to come after you. So don't do that stuff. Okay. Number 19, the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. So this was during the 1920s. Women finally got the right to vote. Yay! All right. Now, here's the thing. Some years ago, I was reading these articles that about these the LGBTQ, I think that's all the letters, plus community, when they were doing like the, oh, we don't want to be called he or she, we want to be called them and they. Some people were like, well, you know what? They shouldn't be allowed to vote. Yeah, because it's they're not male or female, and that's what the Constitution says, that male and females can vote. So yeah, they shouldn't be allowed to vote. No, the 19th Amendment does not specifically say women. It says on account of sex. So you cannot be denied the right to vote simply because you're born a male, then you identify as female, or you identify as something else, or la la la, whatever it may be. You cannot be denied the right to vote. Again, if you're of age, you've registered to vote. And again, if you're depending on your situation with legally with prison and some of that, depending on that factor too, you cannot be denied the right to vote. Okay. So now this one's pretty short because well, your thing's at the very bottom. Okay. But basically, the 21st Amendment said that alcohol is legal again. And I'm sure, like, well, was it ever illegal? Yes, it was. The 18th Amendment said alcohol was illegal. The 21st said now it's back to being legal again. The reason why I put this one is to basically show you guys not everything is going to stay legal for the rest of your life. Sometimes, some way, somebody might say, hey, this stuff is hurting people. We need to make it illegal. Okay. So I just gave this example in class. Like, if they say hair dye for girls should be made illegal, it's, making them crazy or it's doing this to them. And also people are like, yeah, we should make it illegal. If there's enough votes, it will become illegal. Okay. So you guys really need to know here from here on to the future what is going on in this country and what is like people saying should be legal, illegal, things like that. Okay, you guys should really pay attention to what's going on in our country. Okay, that's why I put this one on there. Now, the last one, the 26th Amendment. The right of citizens of the United States who are 18 years of age or older to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of age. Before the legal age to vote was 21. And a lot of people were like, well, how come these guys are going off to war in World War One, World War Two, Korea, Vietnam? They fought and died for their country, and they have yet to be 21. They have yet to reach the age to vote. Shouldn't somebody who's old enough to go to war be allowed to vote on what's going on in our country? And that was a big thing. So now the legal age is 18. And like I said, I've read quite a bit of articles and things like that about people saying the legal age to vote should be lowered to like 16. I've even read something as low as 14. To me, that's ridiculous. But again, to each their own. So who knows? Maybe in the future, somebody might be saying, yes, 14-year-olds should have the right to vote. And it'll come up to on an election. And it'll be you who decides whether that's a good idea or not a good idea. Okay. So again, you guys should really pay attention from here on out in what's happening in our country and what are things people saying that should be legal or illegal or things that should be altered or changed in our Constitution. All right, so here's your final question. Of all the amendments we went through, 1 through 10 and all the ones we talked about here today, which two do you feel are the most important and why? Don't forget the why. I've noticed in the past couple weeks, some of you guys have been really slacking off. You just put like, he went there. Why? You forget the why. You don't explain why. I think it's good. Why? Okay. And that's where you lose a lot of points, guys. So be sure you add those whys. Explain your decision. Explain why you feel number 1 and number 8 are the most important. You know, explain why. So, with that being said, guys, hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you enjoyed this lesson. I'll see you guys in class, just without the makeup. All right. So, you guys, you take care, you be safe, and I'll see you guys later. Okay.